Imagine a country that sits on the fulcrum of 3 continents, controls a choke point through which 1/5 of the world's oil flows, holds some of the world's largest hydrocarbon reserves, commands a hardened paramilitary force that shapes wars next door, and can turn a regional protest into a global energy hiccup with a single missile exercise. That country is Iran. But why? Why does a country with a GDP smaller than that of many Western states command so much global attention, anxiety, and strategic focus? The answer isn't just about ideology, and it isn't just about the headlines you see on the evening news. Iran holds the ultimate geographic trump card. It sits atop the 2nd largest natural gas reserves and the 3rd largest oil reserves on Earth. It commands a naval choke point so vital that shutting it down for a single week would cripple the global economy. Furthermore, it has built a shadow empire of proxy forces that stretch across the Middle East, effectively challenging the greatest military superpowers in human history. To understand Iran's strategic mindset, you first have to look at its geography. Geopolitically speaking, Iran is an island. But it's not surrounded by water. It's surrounded by some of the most unforgiving, impassable terrain on the planet. To the west, bordering Iraq and Turkey, lie the Zagros Mountains. This isn't just a single mountain range. It is a brutal, jagged series of parallel limestone ridges stretching for nearly 1,000 miles. To an invading army, the Zagros represents an absolute nightmare. You cannot simply roll tanks across it. Every valley is a natural ambush point, and every pass is a defensive choke point. To the north, guarding the capital of Tehran and the Caspian Sea coast, are the Alborz Mountains, featuring peaks that soar over 18,000 feet. To the east, bordering Afghanistan and Pakistan, there are 2 of the harshest, hottest, and most lifeless salt deserts on Earth. This geography makes Iran virtually unconquerable by land. For a real-life example, look at the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. Saddam Hussein, backed by billions of dollars and possessing one of the most formidable mechanized armies in the world at the time, launched a surprise invasion of Iran. He expected a swift victory in a matter of weeks. Instead, his military smashed into the foothills of the Zagros Mountains and stalled. The war dragged on for 8 agonizing years, costing over 1 million lives, and the borders barely moved an inch. Look at the southern edge of Iran, where the Persian Gulf meets the Gulf of Oman. Here lies the Strait of Hormuz. If the global economy has a jugular vein, this is it. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most critical maritime choke points in the world. At its narrowest point, the strait is just 21 miles wide. But because the waters are dangerously shallow, the actual shipping lanes that massive supertankers can safely navigate are only 2 miles wide in either direction. Through this incredibly narrow, highly congested bottleneck, the world's lifeblood flows. Roughly 20% of the entire world's global oil supply, amounting to over 20 million barrels every single day, passes right off the coast of Iran. Furthermore, about 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, LNG, primarily from Qatar, also transits this route. Why is this so strategically important? Because Iran effectively holds the global economy hostage. Iran's military is heavily invested in anti-access area denial capabilities. They have lined their southern coast with thousands of hidden anti-ship cruise missile batteries, sophisticated sea mines, and fleets of hundreds of fast-attack swarm boats operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Let's look at a real-life example of what a disruption looks like. In 2021, a single cargo ship, the Ever Given, accidentally turned sideways and blocked the Suez Canal for 6 days. That mere accident held up an estimated $9 billion in global trade every single day, causing supply chain panics worldwide. Now, imagine if the Strait of Hormuz were intentionally closed. It wouldn't just delay consumer goods, it would instantly trigger the greatest energy crisis in human history. The price of oil would skyrocket overnight, potentially breaching $150 or even $200 a barrel. The global stock market would crash, inflation would spiral completely out of control, and major economies in Asia, like China, India, and Japan, which rely heavily on Middle Eastern energy, would face severe industrial paralysis. According to the latest data, Iran sits on approximately 208.6 billion barrels of proven crude oil reserves. That makes it the third largest holder of oil on the planet, accounting for nearly 12% of the world's total supply. But they aren't just an oil state. Iran also possesses roughly 34 trillion cubic meters of natural gas, ranking it number 2 in the entire world, just behind Russia. Logically, a country with this much energy wealth should be one of the richest nations on Earth, resembling the glitzy skylines of Dubai or Doha. But geopolitics has rewritten Iran's economic destiny. Due to decades of intense Western sanctions spearheaded by the United States to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions and regional aggression, Iran is largely locked out of the standard global financial system. However, this has only made Iran more strategically cunning. You cannot simply erase 20 million barrels of potential daily production from the globe without someone wanting to buy it. Enter China. To bypass Western sanctions, Iran has assembled a massive ghost fleet of hundreds of oil tankers that turn off their GPS transponders, secretly load Iranian crude, and sail it to independent refineries in China. In recent years, Iran has been exporting well over 1 million barrels of oil a day to Beijing. This real-life economic lifeline provides Tehran with billions in untouchable revenue, completely undermining Western maximum pressure campaigns. Iran's conventional navy and air force are no match for the US, but its missile and drone program is world-class in quantity and ingenuity. Largest and most diverse ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East, thousands of short, medium, and longer range systems, some claimed hypersonic. Ranges up to 2,000 plus kilometers, enough to hit Israel, US bases in the Gulf, and even parts of Europe. For decades, the West has been locked in a high-stakes diplomatic and shadow war struggle to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. The mere threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon drastically changes the strategic calculus of the Middle East. It has forced bitter rivals like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Israel to quietly align their security interests out of a shared fear of Tehran. But Iran is no longer operating in isolation. For years, the US relied on isolating Iran diplomatically and economically. That era is over. Iran has actively positioned itself as a crucial pillar in an emerging anti-Western multipolar world order. Furthermore, Iran was recently admitted into the BRICS economic bloc and the Shanghai Cooperation Organism, SCO. By aligning itself firmly with Russia and China, Iran has ensured that any American or Israeli military strike against it wouldn't just be an isolated regional conflict. It would risk entangling the geopolitical interests of Moscow and Beijing. When you put all these pieces together, the picture becomes clear. Iran is not just a rogue state, and it is not just a regional nuisance. Iran is a geographic fortress that cannot be easily conquered. It is the gatekeeper to the Strait of Hormuz, holding a loaded gun to the head of the global energy market. It is an energy superpower that fuels the rise of China. It is the puppet master of a proxy empire that dictates the security of the Middle East. And it is a threshold nuclear state firmly aligning itself with the West's greatest rivals. What do you think? Can talks succeed? Or is conflict inevitable? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.